the false god Molech, which was like a gigantic furnace. He had an open belly where they built fires. His arms were outstretched, and they built a fire in there until fire flames would come out of his mouth. And he'd force his children. People would take their children and they would sacrifice them to that false god. He made his children to walk through the fire. Give them baptism of fire. You know, God cannot be pleased if this was an affront to Him. What must God think of Cincinnati, Ohio, of the United States of America, of this world today, where children are so mistreated? They are sacrificed to the various gods of their parents. The god of Greek god Bacchus, the god of drink. Poor children are abused by the drunkenness of their parents. They're abused as they worship Ashtaroth, or they worship the groves and involve themselves in lewd acts and immoralities and see the sinfulness of this world in the treatment of children. He went to extremes in personal, deliberate sin. He involved himself in observing times. Watching the stars, the moon, and that's what I was talking about, the host of heaven, that he worshipped, set up altars to the sun, to the moon, to the stars. Times. Observing the various movements of the celestial bodies and so forth. He used enchantments, used witchcraft, dealt with a familiar spirit, with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke Him to anger. He said, well, none of those things really pertain to, you know something? I think we'd have to be blind to not know that there's witchcraft, that there's devil worship right here in Coleraine Township. You would be surprised to know how many times I've gotten phone calls. Pastor, do you do exorcisms? No. I mean, right over here at Taylor Elementary School, back in a little wooded area back there, they found all of the paraphernalia and so forth of where they were performing sacrifices of small animals to devils. Back a number of years ago when Steve, after Steve graduated from college and he was coming back here to work with the young people, we were looking for a place for him to live, and right down the street here was a house for rent. And we inquired. The landlord lived next door to the house, and we inquired about it. He said, man, I wish you'd gotten here earlier. I would really like to, that sounds great. I would like to, he says, leave your card, and if this falls through, I'll call you, and we'd be glad to have you. Well, I got no call until a couple years later, a year or two later. And he said, Pastor, could you come and exorcise the house? Those people that moved in were practicing devil worship in the basement. With their pentagram and all of those dark, evil things. I said, no, thank you. You have to get the evil spirits out yourself. I'm not going to mess with it. And he that is in me is stronger than he that is in the world. But the Lord also gave me a sound mind to know where I ought to be and where I ought not to be. So he went to extremes to personally and deliberately sin against God. And we see as we go down to verse 7 that he repeated these sins, and each time he exaggerated them, and they, not satisfied, but they got bigger and bigger. And he set carved image, the idol which he had made in the house of God. Not just in the outer courts, but in the house of God. Of which God had said to David and Solomon his son, in this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen before all the tribes of Israel, to put my name forever. Not only that, but all the while he was leading thousands with him in deliberate sin, as we read. Verse 9, so Manasseh made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to err and to do worse than the heathen that God had expelled before they came in. He also persecuted the people of God. 2 Kings chapter 21. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to the other, besides his sin wherewith he made Judah to sin in doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He not only supported the idolaters, not only supported all of the false gods and so forth, but he persecuted those who would not follow his way, those who would remain true to the God of heaven. And in so doing, he might as well have stuck his finger in the eye of God. For Zechariah says, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me into the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you, toucheth the apple of his eye. In other words, God, I don't care what you want, and I, poke you right in the eye, stick my finger in your eye. And to top that all off, he refused warning. Verse 10. And the Lord spake to Manasseh and to his people, but they would not hearken. What a long list. I suppose that if we were privy to all of the things, and of course, the prodigal son is a parable. But if you were going to write, isn't it interesting how when someone writes about one of the stories in the Bible, how they kind of embellish everything? They give you a lot of facts that the Bible doesn't give you. But if you were writing the story and the prodigal having left and went into the far country, and